Something happened, I think, with me in the last couple of years, because if you would have asked me 10 years before, I would have done films which were mostly based on literary adaptations, or I would have picked stories or subjects which were not, let's say, linked to what we live or what we've experienced in the past years. But again, I don't want to make a psychoanalysis on myself to see what has happened inside me, but I tried now to reflect more of what's happening around us. And I want to start by quoting a great director which I've admired a lot, and I'm like a big fan of him, even though he's not doing any feature films at the moment, and he's announced very brutally that he stopped doing feature films. It's Steven Soderbergh, and he thinks about art only in two contexts. And first thing is about what you have talked yesterday, today, and what we all know, that we people are a species that's wired to tell stories, and we really need stories. And I think that's very important for all of us to share, to be inspired, and for us as filmmakers, it's really essential to find the relevant stories, not just for our community, but to be universal. Second is about what we are mostly talking in our script writing sessions. It's about conflict, it's about dramatic tension, and it's about, finally, problem solving. It's about people who have to achieve something, it's about obstacles, and so on and so forth. You know them better. For me, I'm always questioning myself before starting a new film, like why this story and not another one? Why a particular topic is more relevant than another? And I think I'm addicted to great stories, and I think for me, it has to have a great concept and a great story from the very beginning. And I also believe that everybody is pitching you a story, even though you might be at a restaurant with your friends and you start to talk a lot about, I don't know what kind of encounter, and you made everybody else laughing. Or I remember 2 years ago, I was in a taxi in Berlin and I got a Facebook message from a Swedish woman which I did not know, and that woman told me that I want to tell you the story of my life, and I'm pretty sure that it's a great story and it can be turned out in a film. I was laughing while I was reading the Facebook message, but now we are working together on the script. So it's crazy sometimes. Now about the film which I'm working at the moment. The story goes back in 2007 when I was resigning from the position of CEO of TVR, the Romanian public broadcaster. I've stayed there for 2 years, and it was a very complex, very complicated, and very, I would say, interesting period of my life, my career, because it was a mixture of achieving great things, but also having big disappointments. And at the end of the day, while I left this position after some months, I thought I have to do a movie about myself, about my experience, and I want to be, for at least once in my life, I want to be very selfish and to express what I've felt and what happened with me and with my soul, with my mind, and with everything. I thought it was a unique moment to be able to reflect what has happened with a roughly young guy. I was aged 33 years old when I got there. I thought it's the moment to tell about, I mean, there were a lot of things happening related to political pressure, to my moral values clashing with the values of a system, about secret services, about many, many other things. But I have to say I was pretty much afraid to write a story about myself. I was afraid to write a story about the world of television. I think I was very afraid about exposing on a very brutal way my weaknesses, my successes, my paranoia, my failures, and so on. So I was like, keep thinking that it's a great story, I have to put it somehow, but I don't know how. So after couple of months of thinking and thinking, I was sure that I have to find another story, another vehicle to be able to convey and to depict what I was experiencing. So I had to find a real hero, or either invent a character which would be able to move forward with my story idea. I didn't have any theme in mind. I was sure that I knew some facts, I knew some things, but I was not very much like, what is the film about, or what would be the film about? So I went through some notes and some files, which we all, like film people, have in our drawers, and I found a great story happened in Romania, and very intriguing story happened in Romania in 2002. The story of a young prosecutor, 29 years old, Cristian Panait. He was like the model of his generation, the best prosecutor of his age, and he committed suicide in that particular year. You can see him on the left side. I would go with what has really happened in the year 2002. He was assigned by his bosses a case, apparently a corruption case. He was sent to Oradea, a city in the north side of the country, to start the investigation against an elder colleague of him, Mr. Lele, another prosecutor. This guy, Lele, was instrumenting another case, and he was sure that in the north side of the country it was a big smuggling operation, and all the black money from that operation were somehow financing the political party in power, and actually, the politicians were getting money out of the smuggling operations. So my young hero was given this case, and he tried to find out if this guy Lele is innocent or not. And what has happened that after, I think, not more than 1 month of actually working on the case, in the middle of month of April 2002, he committed suicide. He jumped from the terrace of the building where he was living. The whole affair was very much, I think it was a hot potato in that year. A lot of Romanian newspapers were depicting and were really getting through all the question marks related to this story. It was suicide, it was a provoked suicide, it was a murder. Why this young guy who was very normal, he was like a sport guy, he had a girlfriend, he was a teacher at the law school, all the students were really in love with him because he was a great individual. Why and how this guy could commit suicide? And I have to say, I'm still not getting why people, or what can happen to you as an individual to reach this ultimate gesture. There were many ideas, many theories, So then I was like feeling that somehow all these strong real life material, I have to put it together in a story. But I realized instantly that there is something there. I love the fact nobody knows exactly what has happened with this guy, and I love the fact that he was a young guy, the same age as me, who was clashing with the system. But immediately I realized that I was about to make a film about somebody who I did not meet and who I did not know. I tried to look through lots of archive materials and try to find if there is any live recording of this guy. I didn't find any except one let's say, piece of footage, which I will come back a bit later with this. He was not a public figure, except all the articles in the media which were about him. And actually, he was not somebody you would encounter in you know, like TV shows or history lessons, because sometimes, you know, if you want to do a biopic or if you want to do a bio story about somebody, you can have access to a lot of data and information about that particular person. The whole process for me was like, you know, composing a character through a very complicated puzzle of meetings which I have to have, and I was digging a lot of information. I was trying to meet friends, relatives, witnesses of this case, trying to put together the portrait of this guy. By, you know, working at this story, I tried then to question myself, okay, but what would be the film about? What's the theme of the film? And it was clear that it should be related to human values, to ethics, like ethics and moral values. I realized it's important to talk about how an honest man, as I said, the wonder boy of his generation, is being destroyed by a corrupt system. So for me that was clear, and it happened, I mean, this idea was kind of clear in my mind somewhere in 2008 or 2009. And then, of course, working on this whole story, I was like, I wasn't sure if I would be able to go forward with this story. Sometimes you work on a particular subject and then after years you realize that you're not able to put it together. And it happened that there were lots of coincidences happening throughout the whole process, which made me feel that I'm on the good track. I'm not at all a mystical person, but there were really something happening with me and by researching the story, and these things made me feel that I have to go forward. First of all, we were on the same age. I've discovered, talking to his aunt, she's still living, then when he was a young student, he didn't have money, and he tried to get a job, which was my idea too, to work in a casino at the roulette. It was, I think, in the year 1995 or 96, where the first casino opened in Bucharest. It was called the Casino Berlin, in the same place where is now the Control Club. Secondly, he liked to go to karaoke, and he attended a nice karaoke spot at Teatru Țăndărică, a puppet theater, which was the place where I was hanging around with my friends, colleague with like actors and actresses. So I was like, whoops, it's kind of a strange. For sure, we were in the same room, but we didn't know each other. And third thing was that years after the whole research operation, research period, we've started shooting, and I tried to, of course, do the whole casting, and I've picked one actor out of like thousands of actors in Bucharest for one secondary supporting part, and that actor told me that, hey, how did you know that I was his student? Because before doing acting, I did the law school, and Panait was my teacher. So there were lots of, I call those, strange things happening, but somehow I was sure that it was a meaning. Then, again, working on the story, I tried to put together what the film would be about, so I reached this very general synopsis without getting into too much details of the story and who is fighting with whom and who's the antagonist and so on and so forth. But just as a general idea, that's what the film is about. And these are, let's say, the timeline of the process, which was quite long. As said, in 2008, the research has started. We have done lots of interviews. I've stopped. I took a writer, I changed him, I took another co-writer. It was a quite painful process for me, again, not being very sure that this film would be done and if I would be able to make it. But I would say the critical point of all the writing process was what kind of film should I do and how do I tell the story? coming back to the theme of this session, aiming for reality or fictionalizing real facts. I had lots of moments when I've stopped the writing or I've stopped the research period. I wait for 3 months or 4 months because I realized that while we were writing, the whole idea was to make a film which would mirror the reality, like one-to-one. And I was very much obsessed of being very accurate and follow the real case, or at least what I knew it really happened. But somehow I've lacked what I call dramatic characters, dramatic tension, and I've lacked strong characters who would really change during the script, because we all know that the characters should have a certain evolution, and I've missed it while we were working. And the main problem of the whole script at that moment was the prosecutor himself, the main character. I've tried to make a story about somebody who was perfect, who was great, who was like this guy, because I've met many, many people, and of course I've asked the same question: how was Panaid? How was great? The women love him, the people, the colleagues love him. He was the best. He was like, you know, for me it was like a guy on a statue, and I was looking with him like, what has happened with this guy? And I was so obsessed of making the film about a perfect character, so I realized immediately, or not quite immediately, like 3 months before starting the shooting, I've changed quite a lot the script after I talked with an important advisor for me, the director Lucian Pintilie, who's like one of the greatest Romanian directors. He read the script and he told me, yeah, it's good, it can be a great film for you, it's the most important thing you've done, but we don't need films about perfect people. The audience will be bored. Show us his weaknesses, his moments of failures, his error, his compromises. Why are you afraid about this? Make him human. That's what Pintilie told me after reading that draft, which was about to be shot. So again, we have reworked, and the result at the moment is a fiction story which is very well grounded in reality, but it's still a fiction, with many real elements and depicting some facts as they have happened. But still, again, it's a fiction and not a documentary. Even though we have done a fiction, I have to say the most intense moments while we were filming were not at all surprising. The moments when we were somehow colliding with real elements. For example, I've asked the permission of the aunt of the prosecutor. He was living in the same building with her. They shared a lot of time together in her apartment. He had also a very small, like one single flat in the same building, but they spent a lot of time together in her flat. So I asked the permission to shoot in that particular apartment, in her apartment. Of course, I've shot in the terrace where he was jumping, and for us, for the crew, for the actor himself, going in those places and not like, I mean, we in film, we always lie. I mean, we picked a location because it's nice, because the light is nice, because it's, here it was not the case. I mean, we shot what you will see in the film in this particular street at the upper floor where you would see this terrace. We went into her apartment. And it's hard for me now to explain, but it was kind of an energy in this place. The actor was very emotional. We cried, he cried, everybody cried. And I realized that, you know, even though, of course, we were doing a fiction based on the real story, it was so good and it was such a wise decision to come there and to shoot, even though I didn't know how was the real character's routine inside this apartment and what he was doing on the terrace and how he was feeding the pigeons. But just the fact that we were there, I think it helped us a lot. And that's a moment. Don't be afraid, he's a stuntman, so it's... I would like now to, that's the, let's say, a key visual or key art, which is now, let's say, we liked it as a sort of how we would like to promote the film. But now I would like to show you a 10-minute video montage. I won't like to say more now, but I would like you to see it and then maybe to be able to comment it afterwards, because it depicts one of the most important scenes in the film when our hero, the young prosecutor, is going to Oradea and he is starting a search into the house of the elder prosecutor. And it's actually, it's not their first encounter, but it's a very important and very dramatic moment. It's like a confrontation between those two characters. And yeah, let's maybe try to close the lights.
Aveți grijă!
Domnul ofițer, domnule Capogan, procuror Cristian Pandu, parchetul general, anchetă specială, în baza rezoluției 102, pe 2002, procedăm la efectuarea percheziții în condiții legale. Ceea ce ați făcut dumneavoastră, așteptându-ne în casă cu altă cameră, nu corespunde dispozițiilor legale. Dar să știți foarte bine lucrul ăsta. Domnul ofițer, vă rog să vă legitimați. Cine sunteți ea? Cine sunteți ea? Sunt în casă. Am spus să ne efectuarea activității. Odi Flora, direcția cercetării penale echipe. Tehnicianul criminalist care efectuează activitățile. Deci, vă rog să părăsiți mobilul. Nu aveți nicio claritate în acest moment.
Și sunt invitații mei, sunt în casă mea.
Invitații de la televiziunea locală. Nu pare rău, nu este procedura.
Ce să nu fie procedura?
În acest moment se efectuează o percheziție.
Nu au trebuit să filmeze timpul.
De ce să nu? Vă rog frumos să... Domnule, țin să vă reamintesc că prezența noastră aici este nelegală. Aici este mai de procedură penală și nu se face ziaristică. Vă rog frumos, scoateți camera.
Eu am nevoie să fiu sub control acesta.
Vreau să părăsiți imobilul.
Nu, stați în casă. Stați în casă, nu poate să vă dă nimeni.
Ați filmat începutul, vă rog frumos să părăsiți imobilul.
Stați în casă. Sunt în casa mea.
Vreau să părăsiți
Vreau
imobilul.
să procedeze.
Domnule, vă rog să procedați pe eliminarea persoanelor care nu iau parte la percheziție.
Nu înțeleg de ce.
Persoanele care nu iau parte la percheziție, vă rog să
Nu înțeleg de ce nu au voie să participe. Eu vreau să mă asigur de...
Domnule, dar sunteți împlinit în acest moment.
Măi, eu am nevoie să fie sub control acest.
Ce vreți să demonstrați? Ce vreți să demonstrați?
Este vorba de un mijloc pe care eu vreau să am control. Că ce faceți dumneavoastră este legal.
Domnule, că eu vă asigur că totul se va desfășura conform dispozițiilor legale. Avem tehnicianul criminalist care consemnează... Domnule, poate va avea permisiunea.
Stați puțin, să filmeze înainte.
Domnule reporter, vă rog, articolul 100, cod procedură penală. Că asta s-a făcut înăuntru, de asta mă deranjează. Ați sunat la ușă și ați intrat. Dar percheziția se efectuează după anumite reguli. Așa că vă rog...
Hai să le citim.
Avem tehnicianul criminalist, avem martorii asistenți. Articolul 100 permite efectuarea percheziției, deci prezența noastră nu este oportună aici. Se desfășoară percheziția pentru că este necesară cauzei. Nu sunteți între doi procurori, sunteți între un procuror și un minut.
Care beneficiază de prezumția de
desigur, beneficiază de prezumția de nevinovăție, dar care și asta este dinamică. Vă rog frumos să... Domnul Lega, sunteți magistrat. Ați eventuat dumneavoastră pe petiții. V-aș putea doar pe presă în interior.
Dar nu e vorba de presă.
Deci eu v-am avertizat. Vă rog frumos să părăsiți...
Sunt în locuința mea și îmi doresc să participe la un an de...
Nu, dumneavoastră sunteți sub autorizație de percheziție și în prezența procurorului care are acte de cercetare și percheziționare. Vă rog frumos să părăsiți... Domnule, în acest moment începe activitatea militare de efectuarea percheziției. Vă rog frumos să poată prezența noastră nu este... Domnule, așa ceva este...
Că dumneavoastră blocați, ce faceți de
Păi, eu blochez pentru că ați început, vă puteți să băgați fișier la mine acasă și dați așa pe cine vreți afară.
Faceți dumneavoastră ancheta cu faci nu știu noi?
Nu.
Păi și atunci ce faceți?
Păi, vă să estimați că începeți percheziția, nu să faceți ce faceți.
Vreau să mă duc până afară, să merg la toaletă. Care e problema?
Lasă-mă de ușă.
Dar de ce dacă îmi face mie ea la asta?
Rămâi în casă.
Dar vreau să ies.
De ce?
Că așa vreau eu.
Cum așa nici o percheziție? Vă așteaptă cineva afară să vă dea ordine.
Auziți, îmi faceți dumneavoastră regulă mie și nu știu eu? De când? Vreau să ies, mă duc până afară la toaletă. Care e problema?
Dar du-te la toaletă.
Domnule, vă rog, domnule, vă rog să nu mai sabotați percheziția. Asta faceți de dimineață. Vă preorați de toate tehnicile posibile.
Dar de ce mă deranjează că cineva vede cum ați spus asta?
Nu, mă deranjează că obstrucționați actul procedural și trebuie să luăm parte la acest
Sunt
scene.
în casa mea și dacă vreau pun și pe risca de la vede.
Asta mă deranjează.
Du-te după el. Uite cum am...
Domnule, vă rog să vă liniștiți. Vă rog să vă liniștiți.
Să stau liniștit, să aștept să... Credeți că eu nu știu cine v-a trimis? Sunteți trimise de prim-ministru.
Terminați cu insinuările astea.
Speciale, în baza rezoluției 102, cu procedură mai efectuată unei percheziții în condiții legale. Ce ați făcut dumneavoastră așteptându-le în casă cu alte camere nu corespunde dispozițiilor legale. De ce? Până asta vreau să părăsiți locuința.
Nu, deci să părăsesc locuința. Eu doresc ca martor de asistență.
Cine sunteți, vă rog? Cine sunteți?
Deci eu sunt convins că dumneavoastră...
Domnule,
putem firma... Nu, o să dăm materialul organizat. Deci eu consider că la ora actuală dumneavoastră comiteți o...
ofițerii, vă rog să vă legitimați. V-am spus termenul efectuării activității. Poftiți, vă legitimați fără nu?
Mai efectuatul general al poliției. Direcția poliției judiciare.
După legitime, pregătește pentru anumite. Tehnicierul criminalist, care a efectuat activități.
Da?
Ne prezentați documentele noastre, ați făcut, vă rog, să părăsiți locuința. Deci nu aveți nicio calitate în acest moment.
Nu. Deci, înseamnă că e invitații mei, nu de cauză la mine. Ce să nu fie procedura?
Vă rog frumos. Deci, în acest moment se efectuează o percheziție cu care nu am. Vă rog frumos să deci aveți în acest moment s-a avut procedura de discuție, tot ce din acest moment, nu, aici este un act de procedură penală și nu se face dialistică. Deci vă rog frumos să vă rog.
Dacă este o bună, o să care opinia doamnă.
Deci vă rog frumos luați măsuri pentru eliminarea persoanelor care nu au fac. Vă rog frumos să scoate din încăpere.
De ce să părăsească? Sunt în casa mea.
Deci scoate din încăpere. Nu corespunde procedura legală. Vă rog frumos să părăsiți.
Nu înțeleg că nu au voie să participe. Eu vreau să mă asigur că
sunteți magistrat.
Da.
Față de care s-a dat un aviz de cercetare și de percheziționare. Modul în care ați acționat, introducând în casă, nu corespunde dispozițiilor legale. Și n-ați știți foarte bine. În acest moment se zice foarte de afară.
Nu plecați de pe eu nu am chemat ziariști,
Astăzi sunteți în nimic în acest moment.
deci eu am nevoie ca să fie controlat ceea ce nu am făcut. Nu. Atunci vă rog să stați un pic, să filmeze înainte cum apărează. Stare dinainte acasă, ce vă deranjează? Deci care sunt regulile? Eu sunt...
prezumția de nevinovăție, sigur, dar care și asta este dinamică. Încă o dată, nu știu, așa se legătește.
Domnul, dacă descade și
Persoana care i s-a cerut să predează un obiect sau un scris de cele acasă la articolul 900, găsește extensul sățirii acestora, precum și ori de câte ori căderea și strângerea probelor judiciare în cadrul urmării penale sau în vieții private, poate dispune pe care le facă conform legii.
nu părăsiți, domnule, nicio locuință. Nu părăsesc, pentru că nu vă violentați, pentru că atunci sunt și eu
Eu mă aduc la cunoștință că în acest moment începe activitatea banului militare de efectuarea percheziției.
Deci, nu, eu doresc.
Deci v-am adus
Nu mai blocați niciodată, gata, pentru că trebuie să ați început. Ați început de la anchetat cu bani, nu știu? Nu, și de ce problema că v-ați legitimat că intrați în casă să faceți percheziție. Vă rog să faceți la percheziție, nu se faceți. Lăsați-ți, domnule, ușor, domnule, dacă ești preocupat să vorbesc cu ele, domnule, rămâi în casă, de ce să ieși? Așa faci? Nu ai voie să ieși, de ce e aici? De ordine mie? De când? De când? De când aici? Da, du-te la toaletă, mă.
este...
Ok?
Ce faceți cu noi acum? Ne rețineți pe timp?
Nu, domnule. Dacă ați plecat, vă rog să participați, să faceți percheziția.
Care în acest moment am găsit în locuință
Și care?
corespund, uitați cum